Next up, we're going to have a CLE panel discussion. Zascha Abbott, Rob Freedman, and Anthony Miller. Zascha represents employers and labor employment disputes. Her experience includes defending employers in a variety of employment matters, such as claims of discrimination, hostile work environment, constitutional violations, and retaliation claims. Zascha also defends employers in wage and hour cases. She's the immediate past chair of the Labor and Employment Law section. Rob Freedman is a shareholder with Carlton Fields in Tampa. His primary areas of practice are development of condominiums, subdivisions, timeshares, vacation clubs, mixed-use projects, master planned communities, commercial developments, and matters involving distressed real property. He's currently the chair-elect of the Florida Bar Reptile Section and serves on the section's executive committee. And last but not least, Anthony Miller from here in Tallahassee practices out of Tallahassee. He's with, I always forget the acronym. AST, which deals with government technology. He's a graduate of FSU, has been licensed 18 years and handles all sorts of cases. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to them to talk to you a little bit about CLEs.
Good morning. Very grateful to be here with the panel. We got a chance to huddle beforehand so that we can kind of make this time constructive. We wanted to make it very interactive. The topic of CLE is something very important to all of the sections, and many have strong opinions about it, strong convictions even about CLE, what works, what doesn't work. I want to start off by just sharing a little from our perspective, and each one of us will do that. Again, we want to make this interactive. If there's a compelling question you have to ask, please do so. Then after we each finish giving some summaries of things that we want to talk about, we really want to hear from you. First of all, profile for our section. Again, I'm with the government lawyer section. We have 933 members. We kind of divided this. I'm kind of like the small fish in the pond. Then we have the mid-size, and then the big fish, high maintenance fish at the end as we.
That's what my wife says too.
But we have 933 members, and we are at the process where we are building credibility with our CLE program. I've been chair of the CLE committee for our section probably a little over a year, and so it's been a great learning experience. So we have started making incremental steps, get some successes on our belt, and really get known by our members as, hey, the government lawyer sections they put on some quality CLE, and so you mix that up with some free CLEs and some that you're going to have to charge money for. But I want to share some of the successes we've had and some of the things that we are really looking for as opportunities. One CLE that I was very excited about that we did this past April in Washington, D.C., it was the federal seminar, and it was a seminar that was held for years, and then all of a sudden it kind of stopped momentum, and we decided to kind of resurrect it. And so we were able to have that CLE in Washington, D.C. It was a federal seminar. We had about 13 participants who traveled to Washington, D.C. We got a chance to hear oral arguments before the Supreme Court. We got a chance to take a tour of the U.S. Capitol. We got a chance to have CLEs there in the very heart of our U.S. government, and it was a great experience. And so we're really recruiting people who have federal interests. I've already touched some of you all and said, hey, look, we're having Federal Seminar 2018 in April, right after the Cherry Blossoms, festival. Yes, I see Hillary is excited about it. But we really want to make that as one of the touchstone CLEs for our committee. Another thing, too, last year, we are really start collaborating because we are such a smaller group with the young lawyers, with the appellate section. We had a very successful CLE with the appellate section recently practicing before the Supreme Court. We had a number of attendees, a lot of good participation, a lot of good follow-up from that. and that was held, I think, about a month or two ago. Russell Kent was the lead person on that, and for the appellate section, it was Courtney, I think, Brewer. And so we got a lot of good momentum from that. And I think we do that every 2 years. Is that right, Francine? Yeah, every 2 years. And one other CLE that we did last year with the administrative law section, it was a CLE that supported the certification for the admin law certification. And that was well attended. I think over 70 attended that. It was one of the larger ones. Again, you know, we're looking for opportunities like that to collaborate. I've been talking to Santo and Christian with the Young Lawyers Division. We're looking to do a technology CLE. You know, with my experience now in technology, since I've been working at the Agency for State Technology, and technology being one of the approved CLEs, and we're also looking to do something on the administrative front. So those are some of the successes that we're trying to build on. As far as revenue, for us, CLEs have not been hugely revenue generating. I think when I looked at it this past fiscal year, it accounted for maybe 8% of our budget. So maybe, you know, I don't know what other sections, you know, as far as I know the reptile section is, you know, you all generate a lot more for your, you know, for your CLEs, but that's something, again, we're trying to build on and improve on. As far as challenges that we've experienced, you know, competition in this space is very strong. As one of the individuals from the Florida Bar mentioned, I think they said they have a CLE on average every day. So a lot of those are free. You heard our president share that they're going to be touring the state, doing some free CLEs to draw interest. And so again, there's competition in that space, and but there's opportunity as well. So those are some of my general comments. I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Abbott.
The labor and employment section, we have about 2,500 members, and we've had several CLEs that we've been doing, fortunately, for a long period of time. For example, one thing that we've been doing for many years is that we have a joint CLE with the city, county, and local government section. And we do the CLE together with that section every year. And what we do is we switch responsibility as to what section does the bulk of the work for that year. And that's been very profitable for both sections, I believe, as far as attendance and revenue, and also the CDs that get sold in the future. So we've had some pretty good live webinars, and one of the things that I think is important we have found to be that affects how well the CLE will do is how much advanced planning is done at many times to secure everything down. That's for the live ones, you know, as far in advance as everything could be secured, the venues, the speakers, the program, the better off the section will be and the program will be. And one of the best things to do is, if you're able to have all the CLEs as much as possible for your whole year scheduled right now, or even the month before, that takes a lot of effort, because there's a lot of different parts that need to be go into play, and it's difficult with everything that the staff needs to do and the officers need to do. So to the extent that you get help from other officers, or even maybe form a CLE committee to help secure as much as possible ahead of time, would likely be helpful to have a more profitable CLE year for your sections. That's I think, one of the crucial things, and that also helps your advertising and your attendance. Another thing that helps the CLEs is to have different ways of sharing the CLE. You can have the live webinars, you have the CDs. We also have webcasts that our section does, and we've had 7 webcasts this past year, and that's easy for people to use the CLE. And then we also put those webcasts on CDs that are sold. And from our experience, our aftermarket sales have been very profitable, more than the actual live CLE, because there's a lot of expenses involved in putting together the live program. Another thing that we've done that's a good idea is if you already have a CLE, a full day CLE, you can take a part of it, like a 1-hour ethics panel, and sell that separately. And ethics is something that everybody needs. So that's another idea that that we've done before and has been helpful. And as far as where your programs are going to be, it's a good idea to have a location that it's easy for people to get to. Sometimes a CLE may have less attendance because it's just difficult, even if you advertise it early, for everybody to travel to that specific location. So thinking about where it's going to be, how it is going to be for people to attend live, those affect the how profitable or how well attended it may be. Although you'll still have the aftermarket to help you out. Something that we've done for some of our programs is consider doing a survey of your membership to see if they're, what venues they might be interested in or what time would work for them, or even a survey with your executive committee, your council, just to see if that would help your attendance. And when you're putting your programs together, it's important, we have found, to try and include as much diversity as possible in your panels and try and include different speakers every year so that everybody has an opportunity to participate, and that increases the people's are more encouraged to attend and participate. And in general, I would say that the most important thing that we have found is as much as we can get from the aftermarket, and as much as we can do sell the CDs and break down what we have, and to be able to sell it in other formats, has been is better for our CLE revenue.
Okay. Well, obviously, the real property, probate, and trust law section, we've got nearly 11,000 members. And so people have said that we're the big fish. Please don't think of us as the big shark. We are not trying to steal your members. I've actually had people come up when I was CLE chair for our section for 2 years and actually say, we don't want to hear about your programs because all you're trying to do is take our members away from us. That is not what we want to do. So please take that back to your sections. That we don't want to take your members. We want to help. We want to participate. We're not trying to steal anything. But let me tell you about the reptile section. We have obviously two different divisions, real property and probate and trust, which are two different practice areas. There are some overlaps, but two very distinct practice areas. On the real property side, we have 18 substantive committees, and we have 19 substantive committees on the probate and trust side with different topical areas. So you can imagine, and I'm a real property lawyer, we jokingly refer to ourselves as the dirt and the death group. So I'm on the dirt side. I'm above ground. They're all the underground stuff. And we have all sorts of different range of topics. Well, that leads to a lot of CLE opportunities on different topical areas. And we have a separate CLE committee that has, now it has a co-chair from each division, and we have some vice chairs to help run these programs that we deal with. But I became CLE chair about, I think it was 5 years ago. And the year that I became CLE chair, our CLE revenue, net profit, dropped to the bottom, that we've had. Now, I know it was still a lot of money. I don't want to say, we were starving. It wasn't that. But we saw a massive drop-off, and we couldn't quite figure out why. It took us about a year and a half to figure it out. And what we came to realize was because we have such a diverse group, we were really not drawing people to as many live programs as we were. We were putting on 12, 13 live programs out of the real property division each year, and we were probably putting on 8 or 9 out of the probate and trust division. That's a lot of live programming. People weren't coming, and we came to realize there have to be other ways. So we started our webinars. And quite frankly, that has turned around our financial results but also has given, just as importantly, the ability to educate the members of the bar in various areas in a lot easier fashion. I think this year on our calendar, as of right now, we have about 12 or 13 scheduled, something in that range. We may actually have more than that. Historically, we've had more of the real property folks, almost exclusively the real property folks, doing the webinars. I think the probate and trust folks are getting ready to start doing them. So we're really going to have a lot of these webinars, and these are, to make sure I'm clear of what we consider a webinar, because I know terminology can be different amongst the sections. This is a 1 hour, we do them at lunchtime seminar where you're sitting at your desk, and you do not have a video feed. You have, on your computer, you have a PowerPoint that the speakers scroll with. And it gets uploaded to InReach. We do it, there are timelines that your administrator will set forth. You can do them very quickly if need be on a really breaking matter, but we schedule these out, and we get the materials in, everything gets uploaded. It's easy. We find that we get a decent amount of attendance at a lot of these programs. By decent, that may be 30, 40 people, let's say, for some of these programs. I think, and I don't have the exact number, Terry can probably give me a better number, I think 12 to 13 people approximately is the break-even point, right? Terry's shaking his head yes. So it doesn't have a lot of expense, but the key, as everybody is saying, is aftermarket. We make the vast majority of our revenue off of the aftermarket sales of these programs. They're in the 24/7 catalog, easily downloadable, easily findable. And we find a lot of that aftermarket sales occurring, and it continues to grow. We've had a little bit of a drop this year in our numbers for a variety of reasons, but we're still seeing that growth in the webinars. We still do live programming. I don't want to make you think we've gone exclusively to webinars. We still have a number of the full day and multiple day programs. Even on those, we're seeing more increases in people connecting via the webcasts. And when you have the full day programming with the webcasts, you can charge a premium for that not just covers the in-reach costs for projection, but it is actual profit to you at the end of the day. So there are lots of different ways to handle this. We really don't do the half-day programs very often. We've stayed away from those because we seem to find our group doesn't want to see those, and the costs are exceedingly high to have a half-day in-person program. The other thing that you can look at is how you deal with the number of speakers you have. The more speakers you have, the more administrative costs you're going to have, the more expenses, the harder it's going to be to make a profit. So what we've started doing is, in a number of our programs, you'll have a speaker getting up there and giving let's say a 50-minute presentation on something, or even 30-minute, whatever it is. And later on, we'll have a panel discussion about something else and reuse that speaker and speakers. So we cut down the number of speakers. We kind of have them do a 2-for-1, and we create that interactive dialogue. We've also gone to multiple panels in our programs because we're finding that people don't want to see the talking heads. They just don't want to hear 50-minute presentation after 50-minute presentation after 50-minute presentation. They don't want to hear, they want to see dialogue. Now, that sounds like it is a lot of work. We've done a number of these, and by trade, I'm a condominium development attorney. So I ran our condominium seminar for years. It's exceedingly easy to make something look like there's a lot of dialogue without going to a lot of trouble. It's easy to just plant questions with one of your fellow speakers, let them ask the question. You already know it's coming. It looks really good. It looks like you're having a regular discussion that seems extemporaneous, but it was planned. That goes a long way. We found that on our surveys that come back. That goes a long way towards people wanting to come back and see you again. Another thing that we're finding is that multi-part series of webinars are really starting to catch hold, especially if you can give them a discount if they buy the entire series. Historically, we have had a condominium one-day seminar each year, Condominium Community Association Law, always in April. This year was the first year that we had a condominium and plan development certification review course. The first exam was just a couple of months ago, so we've got our first group that's certified now. We had a problem. We had February and April, 2 programs back-to-back, somewhat similar content, not necessarily same exact subject matter. You get my drift. It's a lot of the same stuff. So we decided not to do the April program. Instead, we put on a 4-part series, a webinar. Not that they were necessarily all related topics, but 4 important topics that needed to get discussed. Did them in 2 or 3 week separation, and if you bought 3, you got the 4th free. And we were charging $105 generally for a 1-hour CLE on these webinars. So instead of going all day for, let's say, $260, $270, you got people hearing, if they wanted to do this, they could hear 2 or 3 or all 4. You might make more money. You have less expenses. You're still getting the information across, and people are being more productive because they're sitting at their desk and being able to do this at lunch and then be able to go back to billable work immediately instead of having the travel to a location, hotel room, meals, expenses that their firm has to reimburse or that you have to pick up on your own. So we're finding that sweet spot. There's still some courses that require that, that full day programming or multi-day programming. But we're seeing that webinar need. Now, it's one of the key components for both types of programs that we have found. You cannot rely upon your administrator, nor should you rely upon your administrator to do everything. You shouldn't have someone in your section design the course, find the speakers, and then just say to your administrator, here it is, take care of it, handle everything. Your administrator is probably not dealing with the topic area, number one, so they don't know whether the information that is coming in is good or not. And number two, your administrator has a lot of other things that they're doing. We have, on our CLE committee, we have follow-up with our speakers. We require our speakers, generally speaking, although some of them don't pay attention to us, to submit the PowerPoint, submit their materials to the CLE folks or whoever's putting the program. Make sure that it's good, it's formatted right before you send it to your administrator. You also do the same thing with the PowerPoints. We're not always as successful as we should be with this, I'll readily admit. PowerPoints get sent one-offs to the administrator, which just takes a lot of time to put together. So I think with a fairly minimal effort, you can save your administrator a lot of work, and it'll be a better program, and you'll make sure the content is right. Marketing. We have a lot of programs, and we market fairly well, but we can do better. One of the challenges is trying to find the sweet spot of how to market your program. The bar has limitations on how many master blasts can go out section-wide to the membership about your emails. You have to pick and choose how you do it, and you have to make sure your email really has something that's going to catch the eye. Something that's going to make this person want to read further and go click on the link and sign up. I'll give one of the people in my section who's on the probate and trust side, so I can disclaim it since I'm a dirt lawyer. Their belief is that we need to scare the absolute crud out of the person receiving the email so they realize they don't know what they're doing and they need to come to this CLE. So the fear and intimidation factor. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Me personally, I don't think that's necessarily the best way to do it at all times. But there is something to be said about finding a way and finding the sweet spot for what that email should say. It shouldn't be the entire program. I get emails now from other sources that are this long before you can figure out what is really being talked about and what the real content of it is. You need to have it in 1 or 2 sentences, in my opinion. You need to have something that catches the eye. You can't just simply put an email. You need to have a logo or something that catches the eye and says, here's what it is. and make it a link to get to the website. Your administrator can help you with that. They're very good at that. And in fairness, when you get to that point, you need to rely upon your administrator, because your administrator's trained for this. We're not. I mean, as an attorney, I never got any training about how to send an effective email to market a CLE program. You know, I'm not a marketing person. Invariably, we have people who, you know, in our profession who think they know everything, and they're going to want to go do it. But I'm just saying, I think it's a combined effort with the ideas. So really look at that marketing piece. You mentioned the breakouts of day-long programming into 1-hour blocks. We've been talking about trying to do that for years, and we're just not doing it. With our diverse programming, we should be able to really do that, not just on ethics pieces, but on other pieces as well. We're not doing that, and we really need to be. It's just we've got so much other stuff going on that's kind of fallen by the wayside. One of the other things, going back on marketing, I forgot to mention, if you can, it may help, especially with drawing in the younger brethren, to be able to have a social media presence that can actively say, here's what's going on, and be able to provide information, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook. I have a Facebook account. I got it to track my kids, but now I see the bars postings, and I see our sections postings. I have no clue how Twitter works. I don't think I will ever figure that out. It just doesn't fit my brain. Other people's it does. So I think there are other ways to get the information out besides just the traditional email. And depending upon the makeup of your section or division, that may make a lot of sense. I have a feeling the YLD is probably using the Twitter feed fairly effectively, just because of the age of the group that they serve. And I'd love to hear, Christian, how you all do that, in terms of your programming. But I think those types of things have to get looked at. It cannot be, steady the course, stay the exact same way. If that's all you're going to do, it'll never progress. You have to always be looking outside the box and seeing how it can move forward. Terry also mentioned something that I wanted to follow up on about the continuing demand for hard copy materials from programs. If you have a live program, your attendees are going to get the link 2 days before, 3 days before with the materials. When you have them register, have a box on your registration sheet that says, if you want hard materials, check here kind of thing. Make them pay for it. Make them pay for it, and don't just make them pay for it for just the mere cost of the book, because there's other things that go into producing the book. Marcy was talking about the administrative fees. If the book costs, let's say, $15, you shouldn't be charging $15. You need to be charging more, if for no other reason, to at least break even on the cost that it really cost you, because of not just the printing, but the administrative costs, the typesetting costs, all of those other charges. You need to charge more on that. We see that demand, and I think we're charging either $40 or $50 for a full day book, when you've got that, or a 2-day book. And people are still buying them. Not as readily as they used to, but there's still enough. But we're making sure we're not losing money on that proposition. And I think that's another important thing to reference. Last thing, going back on the marketing again, I'm sorry for harping on it. The flood of emails is defeatist. If you're going to have email after email about programming, if you have multiple programs within your section, and every week you send an email out about a different program, it's going to end up biting you, and you're not going to be as effective. You have to combine emails, or you have to look at the sequencing of them to be able to be the most effective. We used to flood, because of all the programming we do, used to have emails all over the place. And we came to find people were just tuning us out. We'd still have our hardcore folks showing up for meetings, but the comments we got back were, well, I saw that email, but didn't think much of it because I'd seen other emails, and I figured I'd deal with it later, and then they never go back to it. So you really have to have a strategic mindset in how you're sending those emails out. So those are the kinds of things that we've been dealing with. Hopefully that's of some help, and I think we're just going to take some questions out from you all.
I wanted to
go
add
ahead.
something since you've been talking about the social media and the marketing. One thing our section has done is we have a website committee and a social media committee, and they do all that coordinating, and it has really been very helpful in planning how the email is going to be set up and planning when we're going to send out the advertisement. Sometimes we have to send it out more than we planned on because we want to increase attendance. But we have our Facebook, we have a Facebook account and LinkedIn account. I think we have Twitter too. And we post pictures of our programs and we advertise our upcoming programs. And it's a good way of fine tuning what you're talking about because it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And the people, the individuals on the focus on that committee spend a lot of time getting that information out. So to the extent you can formalize your marketing for your section, it would be helpful for your CLE.
I just want to comment on that to follow up. We recently have started a social media committee, and we've included people that are not necessarily active, and their role is to pay attention to what is happening on social media and feeding it back to us. They also are reviewing to see if it's appropriate content, it's something that would be relevant to our members, and that is very effective. We've also hired a social media consultant, and she has more than paid for herself in just a few months that we've had her. We've had new people join on our section because they saw the notices going out and the activities we were having and what the committees were doing. She is through the Florida Bar, and she's also familiar with what the bar is doing to feed that back to us. So it's been a tremendous value to us. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was I'm also on the Diversity Inclusion Committee. They don't even have newsletters anymore. They don't want newsletters. All they do is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And so everything that goes out with them is just short. And the young people, we're trying to get more younger people on our social media committee, but they say, we don't even read the newsletters. They're always on Twitter. So we have our older group who doesn't want to do social media because they don't trust it. That's me. And then we have the younger people who never even look at a newsletter and only do social media. So we're finding a real challenge to meet the need to get to people in their place as to where they would find us.
Excuse me, Kim. What section are you in, Kim?
We're in the ADR section.
Oh, okay.
Anthony, if I can follow up, it's Christian George, the president of the Young Lawyers Division. We've been marketing through social media for years, as you can imagine. We have close to 8,000 Facebook followers. We're looking up Twitter right now, but I think it's above 5,000 as of a couple of weeks ago. And we are finding that's the best way to get people to CLEs. As Rob said, successive emails just do not work. This year, I'm only going to send an email per month to our members because last year they're going out weekly, and we were getting, we do have 26,000 members, but we were getting at least 100 people unsubscribing every time an email went out. And so that's just too much emails and something we're not going to do anymore. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are the three best platforms to use, probably in that order. If you have not met Danny Aller with the Florida Bar, he's been in and out. He's been taking pictures and posting it on all three platforms, including a very beautiful picture of me that's on Twitter right now. You should talk to him. He has the resources and the knowledge to help your section be very active on social media. At the Voluntary Bar Leaders Conference last week, he put on a presentation, and there are slides available to you about how to do this and get a committee within your group to really perfect social media marketing. Santi, have anything to add? All right, that's it.
I'm just curious here. With the CLEs, what are y'all seeing as far as sponsorships at the live events? Is that something that y'all are pursuing and see as very important, or is it just something that if you get it, then fine, otherwise it's not something you're seeking out?
I had an interesting conversation over dinner about sponsorships. Christian and I were talking about that last night, and it's a little bit more complicated for the government attorneys because certain things as far as who's doing the sponsorship, is the source of the funder connected to a lobbyist. And, you know, it's a lot more complicated, but I do want to look for opportunities. We have never done a sponsorship other than when we did our federal seminar, we had the government, state and legislative people who allowed us who provided us space there, but it was connected to a governmental, you know, presence. But, you know, personally for our government law section, we're looking for creative options, but we just have to be, you know, careful in how we do it.
We've discussed that in our section this past year a few times, and we're looking into doing that. A few things to keep in mind with the sponsors is that you want to, you know, make it beneficial for them to be the sponsors. So you want to have the right program, the right venue, and also pick a sponsor like where they won't have to compete against each other if you have multiple sponsors. So you have to target the sponsors correctly as well. And as I mentioned earlier, the advanced planning for the program and the sponsorship is very important for that too, because the sponsor is going to want that extra time for advertisement so that they can get their money's worth. But the sponsorship is something that we've been talking about, and we had a sponsor for our reception we had recently, and we're hoping to get more sponsors for our CLEs because we think that will help in a lot of ways.
We've looked at it a little bit differently. We don't have that many CLE programs with sponsors, but there's a reason for that. The reptile section has executive council meetings 4 times a year. So, in fact, we have a meeting next week, and we have a very large sponsorship group on both sides, both divisions, and our concern is we've got long-term sponsors, most of them, and going back to them over and over and over again for more requests, sooner or later is going to shoot us in the foot. So we have not looked at asking them. So we have general sponsors. We have friends of the sponsors. We're getting ready to redo our whole sponsorship, friends of the section, I mean. We're going to redo our whole sponsorship structure. But we're concerned that we're going to alienate those folks. And it's also going to be a problem. You know, on real property, almost all of our sponsors are title companies. How do you talk to a title company and say, can you sponsor this program, this CLE, while not ticking off the other 5 title companies who are going to say, well, wait a minute, why shouldn't we have been able to sponsor this? It becomes that competition. Same thing on the probate and trust side. A lot of trust companies, the same kind of issue. So we really haven't focused on it from that dynamic. Some programs we have a limited sponsor, but it's usually maybe $1,000, $2,000. It's not a, you know, massive. It's going to underwrite the program kind of sponsorships that I know some of the other sections, when they have their big programs, have large funds contributed, but you don't have that same kind of 4 times everybody getting together. So that's why we handle it a little bit differently, but for that reason. Does that help? Okay.
I chair the workers' comp section, and we do a lot, and we have one big seminar every April, which used to be our board cert program. Mm-hmm. And we found out one year that our board cert program had 6 attendees. So in what we do, you have board cert attorneys, but adjusters get board certified. So we partnered up with the WCCP, which is the adjusters, and we put our own seminar every year. And we'll have about 500, 550 attendees, and we use a ton of vendors. We have vendor rooms. It's 2 days, 2 tracks, and we'll have 50, 60 vendors because they have not only the attorneys on both sides, but they have the adjusters and the insurance companies and the risk managers. So we found that for us, sponsors and vendors, whether it's attorney sponsors, law firm sponsors, are very profitable, especially when you do a multiple-day seminar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just have a basic question. I know that we're gearing this towards, you know, the more CLEs you do, the more income you're going to have. You get the sponsors, and they get to support. What are we doing with the money? I mean, do we need all the extra money? Where does it go? What are you doing? Are you putting it back in your programs? What do you do?
It ends up helping to fund other projects that we have, and we have we also need the funds. Not being flippant, we have a lot of legislation. We have our own legislative consultant, so we have a contract we have to pay for each year, and we have these meetings because we're having to do we're doing all this legislation. So it helps to help fund those meetings. Some of it goes back into our general fund each year when we have significant profit to help keeping that steady. But there are other projects that it plays into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what we were thinking as for our section was that the sponsors would help with some of the expenses involved in putting on the programs, some of the expenses with the lunches and the dinners and the videos, and there's a lot of additional expense that goes against the profit. So the sponsorship would really help.
Yeah, and for our section, it has not been a significant funding source at this time.
Okay, just a brief cautionary tale, because you live and you learn. But when you are going to partner up with other sections, we were talking about the importance, for example, of diversity, of speakers, and make your membership feel as if they're being represented as a whole. And what you want to do, and make sure you don't do, as the trial lawyer section, we partnered up with another section, which primarily the other section, it's their seminar, they do all the work, and they just ask if we would partner with them. And it's of interest and benefit to our members, so we said certainly, and then our name pops on the program. However, we got blasted because apparently there were no female speakers. And we've got a female chair of the trial lawyer section. We have a female chair of the CLE committee of the trial lawyer section. And it was a tremendous embarrassment to us as the trial lawyers that we didn't have any female speakers, and we have plenty of female speakers who would be spectacular for that particular joint. But we didn't, exactly, but we did not know because we weren't in charge of that particular event or CLE. So I would only caution that if you're going to partner up with a section and your section's name is going to be attached, that you have your respective CLE people be acutely aware of who the speakers are and at least the syllabus for the section that you're co-chairing, so that you don't have that issue arise. So.
I asked Dixie about this beforehand. We're here and we've got the administrators all over there, and I'd love to hear if you all have any comments about what we've said, whether there are other ideas that we've missed, because you all are seeing it day in and day out for each of the sections you all handle. So I'd love, if you don't feel like speaking, that's fine too. We just will shun you. But no, I just love to know if we've missed something, or if you disagree, that's fine too.
Does anyone have any comments? Don't. No one over here tell how late I am with my materials, but well, one thing that I thought I'd mention, dovetailing onto what Christian had talked to about, Danny Aller, who's the social media guru for the bar, and will be speaking this afternoon. If you don't know him already, you should get to know him, because he will promote your stuff with the Big Bars account that has a lot of followers on Twitter and Facebook, and we found that to be very, very helpful for us. The other thing that we've started to do recently, and we've stole this from the family law section, so thank you for this, but we've started to cross certify our things so that we're not only getting CLE credits from the bar, but we're getting CJE credits for judges, because people like to go to programs where there's judges in attendance. Yeah. It's very easy to do. Leslie was here earlier. She helped us out, and she's now over at the bar. Get our CJE credits on the first go around, and so we're starting to do that too with some of our the labor and employment programs that I've worked on. We're going to be doing that as well. Is there anyone from staff that wants to? Accusations, recriminations?
I can talk. Thank you. I think the reason they don't really have anything to say is because we've had a great table here discussing the CLE programs, and I would say there are quick tips. It's just one page. I know it seems like a daunting task to read that other printed handbook. But if you would refer to quick tips for program chairs, it's just one page, and it really is the foundation of everything you need. It talks about the deadlines. It talks about the, meeting the deadlines or exceeding the deadlines for course development. And it also talks about what Rob had mentioned, appointing a quality coordinator to review all the speakers' materials, all of their presentation, PowerPoints, and anything that's going to be demonstrated and presented at the seminar, so that there's quality. You need the quality control coordinator in order to make sure that everything is consistent. So those things are on that page. Other information is on that page. So if you don't read anything else, please read that when you're planning your CLE programs.
And Dixie said something that needs to be followed up on. She made a comment during the tour yesterday that needs to be reemphasized. One of the processes is getting the materials in and getting them into a publication methodology. And there are timelines that are required to go to the folks down in the basement to deal with this stuff. If you miss the timeline, it gets stacked behind other sections' work. Do not ask your administrator to go in and yell and scream and beg and plead to do this. It's important you meet those deadlines, because your administrator is going to go in and make enemies, number one, or number two, isn't going to be able to do it because of what the setup is. We have to be responsible for meeting those deadlines. It's not the administrator's problem to make it happen and then go downstairs and try to find a way when you're 10 days late to get something done instantaneously like we all want to do. We all want instant gratification. It doesn't work in a system like this to put it together.
Yeah. And I was just going to add, when new to the working with the CLE committee, for the government lawyers section, we were very grateful for all the support that we got from Dixie, your team. We have an incredible administrator in Cabral Banner. Raise your hand, Cabral. And I didn't, I want to take the time to really express that gratitude, because it means a lot, especially, for somebody like me who is new to, involving myself in Florida bar leadership. And so I'm very grateful for that.
Yes, our section has a great administrator as well, which is very helpful. Angie Frolic, and which will helps a lot with our CLE and everything we're doing.
Okay, since they had to thank their administrator, our administrator is Mary Ann Obos, and okay, she's the best one. No, I'm sorry.
Not.
Okay, not.
You are high maintenance.
I am high maintenance. Yes, we are.
Well, I can't not recognize Ricky and Joanne as well. So, and just because we haven't mentioned your name, don't feel left out. I think that all the staff over there deserves a round of applause for everything they do for us.